We spoke a lot about class choices and spec choices for Shadowlands as we prepare for the next expansion. Today we're gonna start talking about another very important topic, your add-ons. What powers your UI? What I think is most essential for you to have in World of Warcraft to make sure that your gameplay is most enjoyable. Let's talk about this. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Gyro here once again. I'm your host. In case you're new here and you don't know me, we talk about World of Warcraft here every couple of days. So if this sounds like your cup of tea, please subscribe to the channel not to miss any new content. So as I said, we have reviewed classes and specs, different classes and specs in BFA in World of Warcraft as we approach Shadowlands. I made my selections, you guys chipped in the comments below the videos. I really appreciate your input as well. Today I think it's time for us to continue our preparation for the next expansion and start sharing thoughts, start for me sharing my thoughts with you and welcoming your thoughts on the add-ons. Whether you like it or not, add-ons or UI modifications for World of Warcraft as a game are just as essential as the core mechanics of your classes and specs. Without good add-ons, you are gimping yourself in 2020. You are absolutely gimping yourselves, because I was one of those people who was very minimalist about my approach for many years actually. Well, now it's been years ago when I was like that, but it was still lasting for 2-3 years probably, when I was simply refusing to look into any add-ons. I was using standard World of Warcraft UI, would you believe that? Now, I'm still not a very hardcore user or power user of all of these add-ons, but I know some of them really well. And I have already shared with you some of my thoughts on a couple of very key, very essential add-ons in some previous videos, but I think it's time now to have a little bit of a similar list video, so to speak, and a compendium of add-ons that I think you need for Shadowlands. And when I was preparing this content for you guys, I was planning to do it all as one video, but then it turned out that I wanted to mention this and this and that, and I thought it all was fairly useful. So I decided to separate it into two videos. Today we're going to talk about essential add-ons, which I think you absolutely need, yeah? And in the next video, in the second part of this video, I'm going to talk to you about nice to haves or recommended or optional add-ons. Yeah, how about that? Let's dive into this. Essential add-ons for WoW as we prepare for Shadowlands. Let's go. I have 3 quick points to mention before we start talking specifics. They are very important kind of for you to understand this guide a bit better. First, this is not actually a guide for individual add-ons. This is more of an add-on selection helper video, if you like. Second, I'll talk only about add-ons that I know and use. I will briefly mention some of the others, but only as the known alternatives. So this is more of an overview of my choices and not a review of what's, let's say, popular these days based on some statistics on curseforge.com. Point number 3, speaking of CurseForge, if you are interested in getting any of the add-ons mentioned here today, you could find all of them on curseforge.com in the WoW/add-ons section. One last thing to mention is that I don't actively PvP or I don't PvP seriously enough to consider any add-ons for that purpose, which cuts out a lot of fairly handy add-ons I know of for Battlegrounds and Arena, and I am sorry guys if this is your thing. Please feel free, please use this as an opportunity to add your own selection of add-ons, your own list in the comments section down below. With all this being said, let's jump into the essentials. The first thing that any player who bothered leveling their character beyond the free trial in World of Warcraft is to pick an alternative to the standard action bars, because the standard WoW UI is older than a lot of players out there. It's basically quite ancient and barely usable. So picking a replacement add-on for action bars, which are without a doubt the most essential and central part of the game UI, is a very, very important and personal thing. And it's reflected by just how many options there are for these add-ons these days. I use dominoes, but then there are things like bartender, there are things like elf UI, and this is just to name a few. But if you are trying to be more original and less mainstream, or if you even tried, let's say, these three that I mentioned here, and neither of those somehow satisfied your needs, really? Then just spend some more time browsing CurseForge add-ons collection, and there are literally tons and tons of new ones that are added virtually every day. I did not spend my time checking all of them because I'm very satisfied with dominoes. I tried bartender and even LVUI, but it was years ago when I did that, and LVUI, at least back then, appeared to be way too complex for me, because it wasn't a minimalist friendly add-on. It replaced literally the whole UI and looked, at the very least to me, like it needed a PhD to configure it. Bartender was a bit basic, more closer to dominoes that I'm using now, but a bit basic, at least back then when I checked it, and if memory serves me right. One way or another, I found dominoes and stuck with the add-on ever since, and it's been my add-on of choice for many years. If you are playing a healing class, you will need an add-on that will show your group or raid members in a more manageable way. This is where, for me, add-on called Grid comes in. Grid is one of the most classic add-ons that will allow you to configure the way your group or raid frames are represented, offering quite a few flexible options of horizontal and vertical frame layouts, and simply using the space a lot better on the screen, in my opinion anyway. Which I guess it could be said about any WoW UI add-on worth our while. They do make things look better on the screen, don't they? As with dominoes or with any other action bar add-on, there are many choices of party frame add-ons, basically raid frames or party frames add-ons to choose from. Please feel free to browse CurseForge for those, but I definitely recommend that you do not stick with the standard WoW interface raid UI or party UI. It would just make your healing, specifically healing job, more difficult, much harder than you really need to. Why bother? Just make yourself, help yourself, make your life easier and install Grid or something else. While one could argue that recount as a DPS meter should not be part of the essentials, I think it's important to see how you're doing compared to the others on DPS and on healing, and even if it's not just for the purposes of bragging to other group members about it. Like, don't do that, okay? Don't be this guy or girl, whoever it was, asking others to link DPS meter or telling everyone about their DPS, even if they are good. But this is bragging. I do not know what value really it adds to the group, and linking DPS meter after every pull, you know, which might be a little bit of an exaggeration in this case, but I've seen those that do that too. It is crazy annoying. And I didn't do in this case of the footage shown in the background, but I personally immediately add the person to my ignore list. Call it harsh, but when you start acting that way, it just tells me everything I need to know about you as a player. And the most important conclusion to draw here for me is that there possibly couldn't be anything useful, insightful, or entertaining, for that matter, that the person could offer me as part of my group or raid. I just simply aim to reduce the amount of noise, and self-bragging, showing people your DPS, linking all this stuff into like when you need to, when you don't need to, into the party chat, is just spam. I don't like it. Don't do that. Having said all of that, I do think that something like Recount, as an age-old, very traditional, again, very classic add-on that's been around World of Warcraft space for a very long time, it is a time-proven add-on. It's fantastic. It's fantastic for you to have a realistic view for yourself of how you are doing compared to other players. DPS always compete with each other. It's not a competition per se, where you win something or you lose something, but you don't want to feel like you are lagging behind. You want to feel confident and you want to feel like you're adding some value to your group. This is why It is very important not to ask others to link DPS meters, but to have a tool of your own, especially if it's important to you. It is important to know where you are physically located in WoW, coordinates-wise, on the map. A recent example could be, I don't know, collecting honey for the honeybee mount in Kultiras, when a lot of people roam around the map of a particular zone and occasionally yell in chat things like "bee event at the coordinates 2047. So TomTom is one of the good old, very simple, tiny add-ons that give you access to your coordinates on the map and allow you to quickly find where that 2047 place is, so that you could fly there and join the event, for example, as a very simplistic use case. More complex and more relevant scenarios include heavy reliance of the other good add-ons on the functionality that's offered by TomTom. For example, Azeroth Autopilot leveling add-on that I've reviewed already in the past. You can find this information on my channel if you are after it. I'm pretty sure it's built in a way that it relies on TomTom to project the coordinates and place waypoints all over the map when it guides you from one quest to another. I could be wrong, and they might have just integrated this functionality natively into their own Azeroth Autopilot codebase. I'm not sure, I didn't double check, but it certainly looks the way that they rely on the presence of TomTom in your system, but you get my drift there. In 8.3 you need to download TomTom explicitly, and if I'm not mistaken, Blizzard mentioned something along the lines of them implementing a native WoW UI functionality of showing your coordinates and allowing you to create waypoints on the map without having to use any external add-ons. If that is actually the case, then for now I'm mentioning TomTom here as an absolute essential, but it might not be absolutely necessary in Shadowlands. I spoke a lot about weak auras on many occasions in the past in my previous videos. Weak auras is a famous and truly fantastic add-on, allowing you to add extra visual indicators to your UI, on top of your action bar replacement add-on of choice, such as dominoes for me. Weak auras can be configured to show your key ability cooldowns, buffs, debuffs, something that you should immediately use as soon as it becomes available, like a cooldown I already mentioned on a trinket or something like that. Number of stacks of the Earth Shield on the tank when you're healing as a shaman, to know when to most optimally refresh it. Or, as I relied on heavily in my Horrific Vision runs, proccing of the Gift of the Titans when you stop losing your sanity. These are just some very basic scenarios that I personally use Weak Auras add-on for, but you can find and import configuration strings for Weak Auras that will offer you spec priority rotation systems and a lot of more elaborate stuff that I know some players would almost refuse now these days to play without. I am a lot more flexible and minimalistic in my approach, as a lot of you know, and I keep saying it to you as well. But I still would say that weak auras are essential. It is 2020, my friends. Some add-ons are practically essential, like, I don't know, it's almost like having a, I don't know, remote for your TV. Like, why would you still rely on 1950s TVs that used to have buttons actually on the TV set that you needed to get out of your chair and press? Like, why not use the remote control? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of things we started taking for granted, and it's just traveling with us as a matter of time. Like, we live in the present day and age. So you and your UI, your World of Warcraft experience needs to evolve too. I'll wrap up today's first part of the add-ons review video with Deadly Boss Mods, DBM. Once again, same sentiment goes for this wonderful, essential, in my opinion, add-on that I can't just believe that Blizzard hasn't bought from the developer and didn't bring into the standard WoW UI over all these years. It is literally unbelievable. I know a lot of you will tell me right now that DBM is an optional add-on and doesn't belong in this part of this little, well, shall we call it a guide? I don't know what this video really is. Well, you can function without it. Yes, you can. But you can function without everything, my friends. And if you want to run any group content and not look like a complete noob and not stress about it, which a lot of us casuals certainly could use some help with quite often, right? I'd say that DBM is an essential, must-have add-on these days. DBM tells you when to taunt off the other tank on some random boss in some fourth wing of LFR that you've never been in before and that you queued up for, and finally your hour-long waiting time is over and you're in. So make the best use of this time and listen to DBM telling you when to taunt, turn away from the boss who is about to blind you or something, move out of crap and other super useful stuff. DBM is fantastic. I just simply do not see the reason why you, as a serious or more or less serious WoW player, why you would not install DBM add-on and just step into any dungeon, in any role, into any raid without the fear of not knowing literally what to do. I think it takes that huge part of anxiety, huge part of like fear of uncertainty about your role, about what's about to happen. It just takes it away and it helps you really a lot along the way. And that's all I had for you today, my friends. I think that these are essential add-ons, and I said enough about why I think that some of those add-ons that you can function without are still my essentials, my personal essentials. It's stuff that me, Gyro, that I cannot live without when I play WoW. And I wish this to my people who are just coming back to the game, maybe the new people who are just joining the game before Shadowlands. I have every reason to believe that all add-ons that I mentioned to you today, aside from possibly TomTom, that might have the coordinates projecting functionality baked into the standard UI, I believe that all of them will be updated for Shadowlands. That's why I think it's a good practice to have these add-ons right now installed on your systems. Check them out. As soon as the pre-patch hits live servers, add-ons get updated very regularly. Take a look that they all work and you are familiar with how you're going to configure the stuff. Why? Well, most importantly and most obviously, and the only thing that matters here, is that you don't waste your time then later in Shadowlands to try to deal with some add-on configuration or even try and make the standard UI to work. Why? Spend this time wisely. It's one of the things that I didn't remember and didn't think of, to be honest, when compiling one of the recent videos where I told you what I would be doing right now before Shadowlands hits. Well, dealing with the add-ons, coming up with the new configuration for your UI, maybe even experimenting with some add-ons that you haven't used in the past, maybe trying out some new ones. Right now would be the best time to do that before Shadowlands comes and you have much better things to do with your time. Tell me in the comments down below, as always, was this helpful? Did you learn something? Do you use some other add-ons compared to me? Share it with me, share it with the other viewers. I treat this as a growing little club, growing community that's not even that very little anymore. I really appreciate your comments always, guys, and requests for content, requests for new videos, because this idea to eventually start reviewing the add-ons and talking to you about it came from one of you. Yeah, so thank you very much for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you were new here, I hope you liked and enjoyed this video. Always welcome your feedback, as I already said. I will talk to you in a couple of days' time, and we will be still looking at some of the behavior of the classes on PTR. That is something that's high on my list. And obviously the second part of this video, especially if you like the first part and you like the video, you let me know. The second part will be where I'll talk a little bit, possibly longer, about add-ons that I don't think are essential, that I think are very helpful, but they are secondary add-ons to me. So we're going to be talking about that in the second part of this video. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll be speaking with you again very shortly, very soon. Bye.